All right, so we're recording. Tonight we are going to talk about constraints. Let me share my screen here. I found the best place that has those is and there's a link to this information, and I'll give you a link straight to this too. In fact, I will copy it and paste it so you guys, if you want to follow along. Let's see. There you go. And just an FYI, please stick around till the end of chat. I am going to have to start doing random quizzes because I have some people that are just randomly not showing up and not telling me why. So we will be doing participation quizzes peppered randomly throughout the week. So they will be done through Zoom. So make sure you don't skip out before the end of lecture. Okay? All right, so we are going to talk about constraints. Don't worry, they're super easy. It's just basically proving that you were here and that you can, well, that would, but I also have to do quizzes. They're super simple. They're multiple choice. There's only 5 questions on the one for today, or 4 questions. There's not very far. If you're listening, it shouldn't be that hard. Basically, it's a short, yes, I was there. Yes, I was listening. So no, they're not math problem type stuff. And some of them, the answers are silly enough. You guys should be able to pick out that I was being sarcastic when I made the questions. So, okay. There are different types of constraints. They are used to define rules to allow or restrict what values can be stored within columns. The purpose of using those is to enforce integrity of a database. So sometimes if you just leave everything open, you get way more data than you need. And it's also, you remember that joke that Gwen put in about, if this is your fault for the inputs problem, well, constraints can also help with that too. So they limit the type of data that can be inserted into your table, and they can be classified into 2 types. There's the column level constraint and a table level constraint. Column level constraints apply to 1 column, or you can take a table level, which obviously applies to the whole table. Here are a nice list for the MySQL ones. And I would like you to pay attention to the top 3 because those are very important. And at least the top 2 you're going to need for your project next week. So not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, check, and default. We have gone over some of these a little bit when I was talking about lectures. We're just going to go a little more in depth tonight. So not null. This just tells that you can't put a null value. So when you're inputting stuff into your table and you say not null, you know how sometimes you go down and you see null, 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 null. This says, no, you can't do that. Unique, this constraint in MySQL does not allow insertion of a duplicate value within the column. The unique constraint maintains the uniqueness of a column in a table, and more than 1 unique column can be used in a table. This also helps you set up the primary key constraint. The primary key constraint for the table enforces the table to accept unique data for a specific column, and this constraint creates a unique index for accessing the table faster. And then primary keys and foreign keys are tied together. Remember me talking about that? Foreign keys create a link between the 2 tables by 1 specific column on both tables. The specified column in 1 table, excuse me, must be a primary key and referred to by the column of another table known as a foreign key. A check constraint controls the values in the associated column. Check constraints determines whether the value is valid or not from a logical expression. And then default. In a table, each column must contain a value, including null, While inserting data into the table, if no value is supplied to a column, then the column gets the value set as default. And you can also say, okay, if set default, and then you can say, if instead of just saying null, you can say, I want the default to be this. So anytime they throw stuff in and they don't put the information in, say you have a column that says, like we were talking about our cars thing. Well, let's just say they throw stuff in there, but they forget the manufacturer, and we set our default manufacturer to Ford. This is just an example. Anytime they forget to put the manufacturer in there, it'll say Ford. That's just an example. So
in other words, you want to, in other words, you want to set something for default, other that'll jump out at you other than, well,
it either
whatever.
needs to be something that'll jump out at you, or it needs to be something that you know is going to be used constantly so that it makes data entry faster. Those are the two types of things that I've seen used the most. One that's so obvious that you're like, yeah, okay, that's definitely wrong, or one that's used constantly.
As in, like, bold, the word spelled out blank.
Yeah, stuff like that. Okay. So here are there's just some nice, I like these because they give us some nice big letter color changed everything so you can see these. We're going to start with the not null constraint, and we're going to talk about that first. Using the default value as not null while creating a MySQL table, it can be enforced that a column in a table is not allowed to store null values. If you want to create the table new author where the columns are allowed to store null values, the following statements can be used. And here's your example. If you want to create the new author table where no columns are allowed to store null values, and then you see they have those big old not null in bright red and orange here. And then you can see, is null allowed? No, it's not allowed. And that's just when you're using SQL Server, it kind of looks like this when you're looking at the and MySQL Workbench. This is just the graphic GUI interface of what those look like when you're looking at your table constraints. So does that make sense? Not null just means you can't have null in that table, in that various column. Everybody but Gwen understand. There we go. I was gonna say, I think Gwen's got the extra curve when it comes to SQL. Okay, create table to check values with check constraint. Adding the check constraint in the column table, you can limit the range of values allowed to be stored. And then in this one, you'll see, yep, not null means there's no null value is not allowed. Yep. Okay, so in this example, if you want to create a table, new book, MAST with primary key on book ID column, a unique constraint on ISBN, a column number, and a set to the page, no page, and such that it would hold values more than 0 only, the following statement can be used. So you can see ISBN, you can see there's they want not null and they want it unique. You can see that one's not null and unique. And then when they're doing the check, you can see they're using the check right here. That can be applied to the column of a table to set the limit for storing values within a range along with the in operator. So check, country, in, and then you see the little ones you have there. So on this one, it's saying check that the countries are these. Oh, good. Good. So you're learning something new. I'm glad I can help. You don't need to do all of these, but do you remember us talking about equal and like? So this one, they're checking. When you say check like, it means check to say that this is similar to what this is. That's what like means. Then the and or operators with the check constraints are down here. And that's to check that this one has to have the country that has this and the publishing city as this, or this and this. Okay, before I go on to unique, does that make sense? Or did you have questions about the check constraint?
If it doesn't meet one of the requirements, like the publishing city, then what will be displayed? Like if it's neither Mumbai nor New Delhi.
It'll error out. It'll just say when you try to put stuff in or whenever you try to use this, it'll give you an error message and say that you're outside of the parameters. Any other questions? That was a good point, by the way, so thank you. No? Okay. Unique, we've talked a little bit about the unique constraint. And you do need this in your assignment that's coming up. So this one creates an index such that all values in that index column must be unique. An error occurs when anybody tries to add a new row with a key value that already exists in that row. So on this, the statement below will create a table new author with the column AUTID, which will store unique ID values only since unique AUTID is used. So in this one, you see this one, right? Where is it? Auth. Is it auth ID we're talking about? Okay, so we create the auth ID up here, and then you set at the very bottom, you set that auth ID to unique. Now, you can also set what's called auto incrementing, which is what a lot of places do when they're talking about you call it like inventory and things like that, which also helps with unique, because when you set auto incrementing, it doesn't matter what they put in, it will automatically create that thing and it will be unique because it auto increments +1 after each one that it creates. So on this one, let's see. On this one, the unique is used with the column definition. And you can see it's just in a different spot where they put it. So you can put not null and unique, or you can put unique at the bottom. So those are the two different ways that you can put those in when you create it. Okay. We have auto incrementing. Okay, so we have auto incrementing, what I was just talking about. And I will come back up to default here in a second. The reason I'm talking about auto incrementing is because I think auto incrementing goes hand in hand with the unique, in my opinion, unique character, because a lot of times they do auto incrementing and unique together. So if you want to create an auto incrementing column, say you're creating your cars database and you want to create a column that is like your customer number, and you want that to be auto incrementing, and it just adds +1 to the next one of each one. You set auto incrementing to your column. It will increase the volume of that column by 1 automatically each time you add a new record. And then the MySQL statement that's listed below will create the new author table with the primary key ID on the column. ID column is an auto incremented field. So this one right here, you can do auto incremented and unique on the same one, but they're basically kind of the same thing. But when you set them unique and auto incremented, it just means that you're making sure that your auto incrementing actually works and doesn't accidentally add, you know, multiple values. Okay. Does auto incrementing and unique make sense? Do you have questions on those? We've talked a bit about unique, but does auto incrementing make sense to you guys? So you have your not null on your auto incrementing. You do it as an integer, and then so it'll put, usually what it starts at is 1. And then because if you have an integer and you say it can't be null, it'll pick out 1 or 0. Usually it's 1. And then each one after that will be like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this particular column will create itself from there. Does that make more sense? Yeah, you just kind of have to play with it, run it a few times. Do you remember the W3 MySQL where we were running the code? You can go out and use that, and you can just delete their code and run when you're in there if you want something super fast to play with, or you can use the Workbench, which you guys should have installed already. Okay, so backtracking just a little bit, we'll talk about what's called a default constraint. This allows you to, MySQL allows you to do default constraints. Default is used to set the default value. We kind of talked about this a little bit up there for a column, and it is applied using default value, where default value is the default value set to the column. So you can see down here, hub city default, and then between those. So that whatever is between those single quotes is your default value. As you can see right here, they're requiring default value as India. This is just an option that like Steve and I were talking about. Set something that's glaringly obvious that's an error, or set something that, you know, if that's going to be the country that you set most of your stuff from, say you're only dealing with stuff that's in India, and setting this to India saves your people who are doing data entry a ton of time. That's usually what happens. Okay. Everybody with me so far? If you're super confused, I can stop and we can do stuff. We're doing okay. Okay, we're doing okay. Default makes sense to you. Okay. Primary key, which we talked about, we're just doing some more examples of. On this one, the SQL statement below creates the new table in which primary key is set to the AUT ID. So you see this up here, and then down here, remember, it's just like the unique primary key is set to this column. You can also set it on the same line, just like unique, where you just put everything down on the same line. So it's really how you prefer to do it. Sometimes how you have all of these things out on the same line can get, if you're putting a whole bunch of constraints out there, it can get a little bit jumbled. So that's why some people prefer to do this option where you have the primary key stuff set on the bottom. And then let's see. On this one, they're doing primary key and unique. They're just different columns they're using on this one. This one they're talking about, and they've mentioned this, but you can also set a primary key on multiple columns. This is not something that you need to do on your assignment, but I want you guys to be aware that this is a possibility. So if you're going to be doing multiple columns on a table, you just have to do this down here. You have your columns up here, and then you set, okay, I want this column and this column to be primary keys. So that is an option if you have multiple columns that you need set for that. And remember, primary keys and foreign keys are created for indexing and search to make it easier. So that is the reason why you would have like multiples in there. And a lot of times you'll have multiples when you're doing multiple tables so that you have foreign keys coming in from other tables that can latch on to those different primary keys. Okay, foreign keys. I just remember that primary keys they have to be unique. And so you have to remember that they can't have repetitive information. So that's the big thing you have to remember on those. Just remember that it can't be null, and it has to be unique. Those are the two things that you have to remember. Oh, black fluffy kitty coming in. Okay. So foreign keys. While creating or modifying, you can set foreign key to a column or table. And this foreign key is a column or combination, just like the other ones, which can be used to set a link between data in two tables. Primary key of the table is linked to a foreign key of another table to enhance your data integrity. So this is just an example of your syntax. So the foreign key is referencing the primary key of, this one. Column lists the columns where the foreign key is to be set. References are the keyword. Primary key table is the table name, which contains your primary key. And this is when you're working with big databases. And the column list is a list of columns on which the primary key is set in the primary key table. So this one's a little bit more complicated. On this one, they want a new table with new book here. The primary key for that table is new book MAST and book ID. Foreign key is new mast is for the new mast is AUTID, and AUT is the primary key for new author. It gets a little bit, this is one of those I like to make notes things. Foreign key AUTID for the table new book mast points to the primary key AUTID. Notice how they're the same. They're on the table new author. That means AUTID, which are IDs which are present in the new author table. Only those authors will come to the new book mast table. So here's the MySQL statement for the above task. So remember, you can't do, you have to be not null for your primary key. I'm sorry, no, they can't be. It's not that they need to be unique. They have to be not null. And then here's your foreign keys down here. And you can do foreign key constraints on multiple columns. It can, like I said, it can be very, I'm not going to go down and show you some of these, but if you want to see how complicated you can get, there are some really good examples on just how complicated you can get with these. Cascade, we're not going to do right now because that's not something that you're going to be using. Set null This is basically the opposite of setting it to a specific, what do you call it? Like a specific value or integer. This one basically just sets it to null. So we have our not null, which, you know, says, no, you can't put it in as null. And then you have set null, which you see down here. And that one basically creates the null value in when you create that. So you don't need to add that one in unless you want to be fancy. But there are, as you can see, there are lots of ones down here. And there are lots of little practice exercises that you guys can do here too. Okay. So now that I've confused the tar out of you, are there any questions on these constraints right here? Not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, check, and default. No more, no more. Okay. All right, let me stop sharing my screen here and we're gonna do our first quiz through here. So let's see if it actually works. And I hope that person did not just leave because they may not have heard me. All right, we're gonna launch this. All right, go ahead and give it a go. Cope. You know what? I'm just gonna have to put that in as an answer. I'm going to be doing participation quizzes because I've had some people just randomly not show up. And I need to be able to occasionally say, you know, participation is something we have to check periodically. So go ahead and take this one. It's 1, 2, 3, 5 questions, and they're all fairly easy. So go ahead and get those answered. And it's just basically a question, quiz showing that you guys were here and paying attention. To me, not to you. You guys can't see the poll screen that's popping up to me, right? Okay, no. I only see 2 participants that are through of 9. Kitty, I love you. A bit scratchy. Don't scratch me.
I kind of just want to know how I did.
Oh, I won't be able to see how everyone exactly did until after I end the poll, so I have to wait till everyone finishes it. And then I'll be able to see each individual person. Right now, it's just showing me percentages of people that how many percentages of people picked what and how many percentages have turned it in. I have 5 of 9. That sounds like a Star Trek joke. Well, someone's going to throw you off the curve because we have at least 100% already.
I know, or I volunteered Jen not to be, or Gwen not to be able to take these. It's not fair.
Gwen, you may get extra credit just because they're picking on you. Six out of 9, 7 out of 9, 8 out of 9. Make sure if Zach's on here, then okay, Zach's on here, so that should be everybody. Let me make sure that's not. Okay. I think it actually did allow me to. Oh, good. It did allow me to actually pull all this stuff. No, you guys didn't do too bad. Okay, so before you head out, looks like somebody already left. So that was our first quiz. Let me stop here for the lecture.